the word native out of here. And a lot of what I talk about could apply to any kind of a lawn. So what we're really going to talk about is converting your lawn, if you decide to do so, into something else. And we're going to be a little more specific here and talk about converting it to something native. But really, and in fact, I'm going to talk about fine fescues, which are not true natives. The principles I'm going to talk about, the ways that you do this, really would be essentially the same as if you were going to change your bluegrass lawn to tall fescue, or your tall fescue lawn back to bluegrass because you decide you don't like tall fescue. So it's a lawn conversion talk, but we're going to be kind of concentrating on if you think maybe you want to have a more native species. So that's really what we're going to talk about, and we'll just forge on ahead here. So what I want to talk about is why even think about having a native lawn. What does the word native mean? That means different things to different people. What are some of the better species to consider if you want a native lawn, especially a truly native grass lawn? And then we'll talk about how do you plant it. And there are some different ways of planting these, especially the native lawns they're a bit non-conventional ways you wouldn't think of planting, for example, again, a bluegrass lawn or a tall fescue lawn. And then how do you take care of it after you've got it planted? So that's today's plan. Again, put those questions in as they emerge in your mind, and we'll try to address those as we go along. But why convert to a native lawn? People have different reasons for wanting to do this. It could be that you just want to save some money. You want to mow less. Perhaps you think you're going to have pest problems if you have a native lawn. Some people just like natives. They like using native plants in their landscape. So there are a bunch of different reasons for doing this, but usually it's a combination of all of those. So we'll talk about those. One thing to consider is very important here is if you are going to convert your lawn to something else, make sure that within whatever city you are living, check the codes for what's kind of allowable, especially there as far as mowing heights are concerned. So this is taken from the Fort Collins landscape code. I just cut and pasted this right off the Fort Collins website. And you can see here that all grasses have to be kept to a maximum of 6 inches unless you have blue grama or buffalo grass. So this was a change in the landscape code that was made a number of years ago to allow folks that want to have these more native lawns to give them this ability to do this and to actually not mow those lawns. Because it's something I'll talk about a little bit later, is these native grasses, in many ways, they perform best if you don't mow them. So this was a concession, if you will, and an amendment to the code to allow people to have those more native lawns. They have a list of grasses that are acceptable for doing these lawn conversions. There are some native grasses that can get 6 feet tall, and they didn't want those native type lawns on the streets of Fort Collins, and not just because of looks, but there's a potential fire hazard with some native grasses when they get very tall, and if they go dormant, if you're not watering them, and they're very brown and dry, they can create a fire hazard. So there was a lot of consideration made in determining which grasses were qualified for this. So really, this would be one of those first steps you do, is if you're going to convert your landscape to something else. In fact, if you're going to convert it to like vegetable gardens or anything else like that, always check with the city just to make sure, just to be in communication, and also communicate with your neighbors what you're going to be doing too, so there's no big surprises there. Um, so some of the important considerations when you're considering this native lawn conversion, again, what to plant. One of the big ones is what kind of look do you want? Uh, so this idea of native means way different things to people. To some people, it's I want, and I've had this conversation and exchanged a bunch of emails this week with people doing this. They want it to look just like a lawn, just like what they have now, but they want it to be native and they don't want to put any water on it. Um, and you know, and you can come close to approximating that perhaps, but buffalo grass is not going to be just like bluegrass. And sometimes it's marketed that way. There are water um, um, suppliers, like one large one that starts with DENVER. They used to tell people, oh, switch to buffalo grass, you won't know the difference. And people did that, and they said, you're crazy. This does not look just like bluegrass. These grasses do look different. They're not as manicured, they're not as green, they're not as dense. So they are going to be different. So don't drink the Kool-Aid of it's going to look just like your bluegrass lawn. It isn't going to look just like your bluegrass lawn. And depending on the amount of care you put into it, it can be a little greener, it can be a little browner. It may not grow as much. It may not take the traffic. So there's lots of considerations, discussions, and thought that should be taken before you embark on this conversion. These conversions are not cheap. The plant material, if you buy plugs, for example, of buffalo grass, they're going to be anywhere from 5 to 10 cents a piece, depending on who you buy them from. And if your plant knows that 12-inch centers, it can be a pretty pricey endeavor to plug a buffalo grass lawn. It's going to take you time. It's not going to be fast. If you want a sod, you may be out of luck, to be quite honest with you. There's not a lot of native grass sod being grown in Colorado because there's just not a lot of demand for it. So sod growers don't grow it if people aren't going to buy it. You have to time things properly. You have to generally begin this process like now, or actually maybe a few weeks ago. You want to be done with this well before that first frost in the fall for most of the grasses you would use for this process. You really have to kill off that old lawn. You have to do site preparation, so there's some timing aspects to this. That if you get behind and you get your buffalo grass planted too late in the summer, you might get total winter kill of that young buffalo grass lawn. So it's only winter hardy if you plant the right stuff and at the right time. And then, of course, there is the ongoing maintenance and care of these lawns. They are not maintenance free. Repeat after me, they are not maintenance free. People think they will be. And it's just like any other part of your landscape. Your mulch is not maintenance free. Your rock mulch, your driveway where weeds grow, nothing is maintenance free in a landscape, including native lawns. And if anything, sometimes for the first few years, like the first 2 or 3 years of their life, they can be kind of a pain to deal with, to be quite honest with you. So I like to be very honest with people. I'm not trying to sell you anything, and that's some of the nice things about Extension is we can be brutally honest and tell you. Whereas people that are selling seed or sod or water suppliers that want you to switch your lawn to something else, they're not always maybe as honest as they should be about what this is going to look like and how the process is going to go. So I don't want to discourage anyone, but I do want you to be kind of eyes wide open if you're going to do this. So what does native lawn mean to some people? So this is a lawn. This is down southwest Denver, super high-end neighborhood, right by a very private club. But this was a native lawn that someone had installed. Now, I bet you if we took a poll of those of you that are on the line, maybe, I don't know what the numbers would be, but I would guess it would not be 100% saying this is gorgeous. And some people would say that looks like a weed patch. And in fact, there are some weeds down there. you can look down here, there's a very healthy patch of bindweed here. And there were some grasses in this area that I would not want to have growing in there. And there was some thistle growing in there. But then there were some beautiful wildflowers and some great native grasses too. My estimate is this was probably no more than a year old, this lawn. But for some people, that's their idea of a native lawn, and that's what they want. Okay. And then other people, well, no, I don't want those wildflowers because they look like weeds, but I want something like blue gum or buffalo grass, and these are true natives. But some people say, well, I don't want to mow it. And you can see here mowed versus unmowed. This is all the same water, the same soil, the same everything. This is what these things can look like mowed versus unmowed. In a very rainy year without mowing, blue grama can get pretty darn tall. Even buffalo grass might get to be 8 inches tall in a super wet summer. So then it's, do I mow this or do I not mow this? And so some people want what's down here on the bottom. They want that mowed lawn look, and other people want the prairie look. But really, all of this falls under that umbrella native lawn. And then you can have this here. So I went for a hike with my sons a while back, and this is before the buffalo grass greened up. This is up at Red Mountain Open Space. And this is a pure stand. All the gray colored stuff in the slide, all of this stuff here, this is buffalo grass that is not yet greened up. This was probably, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, something like that. About 4 weeks ago now. And a little bit closer up, that's buffalo grass. That's true native buffalo grass. That's buffalo grass. That's not mowed. That's not fertilized. That's not watered. That's not anything. That's what it looks like before we all came here. That's what a buffalo grass prairie would have looked like. And for some of you, you may say, well, that looks okay. And most of you would say, man, if my buffalo grass lawn looked like that, I don't want buffalo grass. So, and then this is a buffalo grass lawn. This is a buffalo grass variety from the University of Nebraska buffalo grass breeding program, where they've developed turf type, lawn type buffalo grasses. So it is super hard to believe that and that are the same species. But those are the same species that is buffalo grass. So it just shows you can manage it, you can maintain it, you can water it, you can fertilize it, and you can make buffalo grass look like Kentucky bluegrass. Now, my argument there would be, if you're managing buffalo grass like bluegrass, why did you plant buffalo grass in the first place? That could be another conversation, but I see buffalo grass lawns that are planted and the owner does not change one bit how they care for that lawn compared to the bluegrass lawn they had before. So it makes me question what their motives were, except for the fact that they can say it's a native lawn. So you can see this idea of native and the quality level can really differ from one lawn to the next. So what are true natives? And so for this definition of native, to some people, native, this I kind of joke, to some people, if it's tall and brown, or it could be short and brown, it's native, you know. And I would contend a lot of stuff in this picture are not native plants. Many of those wildflowers are not true natives, but that's another story. This is true native. That's a native plant, but it's not growing as a native and not looking like a native. But natives are what were here before we came here. So that's the definition I'm going to use. Bluegrass, there's debate about, was it native to North America or not? There's more and more evidence that it is truly native to North America, which would shatter people's definitions of native, or they wouldn't trust that definition anymore. But for example, tall fescue is a Eurasian plant. So these are true natives. These were all growing here before we came here. They were here when Native Americans were growing here, but these were not introduced by by colonists from Europe or other parts of the world. These have always been here, the grasses in this list. So then I've divided them into what we call the warm season and the cool season species. There's a great picture. This picture up here. This is a buffalo grass lawn. So by warm season, we mean plants that are going to green up late in the spring. So, for example, buffalo grass really just fully greened up about in the last week in many parts of the Front Range. In some parts, it's still greening up. So, whereas bluegrass lawns and fescue lawns are green in early March, and some of them don't even turn brown during a nice moist winter. So that's the big difference between a warm season and a cool season grass. But we do have some cool season natives, and I'll mention those. What I'm going to concentrate on, though, is really buffalo grass. And anything I say about buffalo grass pretty much holds true for blue grama, because those are the lawns people often think of converting to, because you can save a huge amount of water changing from a tall fescue or bluegrass lawn to a buffalo grass lawn. You can. Now, a lot of people don't because they forget to change the way they water, but you can save a lot of water converting to that type. These other grasses, you can water them less, the cool season ones, but they don't look very good if you don't supply them with adequate amounts of water, and most people think they make a pretty ugly lawn. Okay. Question is, how would you find what's native to your area? Yeah, so we've got fact sheets. I'll send out a fact sheet it's not an official one, but we'll send one out that's about what I call native lawns, and it's got this list of grasses and a few other ones. As far as other plants in the landscape, I'll let Amy and Allison give you some resources there, but the Plant Select program is a good place to start because many, but not all of those plants are native. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you some pictures. Here's a wheatgrass lawn, and this is not a bad wheatgrass lawn, but a lot of people would say, boy, that's an ugly lawn. So here's the thing, is you have to temper your idea of what you mean by quality when it comes to these native lawns. I would say this is a gorgeous wheatgrass lawn, but if your bluegrass lawn looks like this, I would say there's probably something wrong with it. So again, it's the species. That's the difference here. Here's a prairie June grass lawn. That's as good as prairie June grass is ever going to look. Problem with prairie June grass is it often does not mow very cleanly, and you get these ends of these leaves that are very brown and bristly and discolored for most of the year. So it's not a grass that likes to be mowed. Unmowed is gorgeous. And so this would be one that I would argue should be an unmowed native grass. The problem is that this lawn can get to be about 14 inches tall unmowed. And so again, you might run afoul of your city landscape ordinances if you put a June grass lawn and didn't mow it. Here it is a little bit more realistically. You can see this is unirrigated. And when it's mowed, it's pretty ugly. When it's unmowed, when it's dry, it's not as pretty as this very well irrigated June grass. But June grass is a possibility. Alkali grass is a native grass. Now this grass has a great use here in Colorado, and that it'll tolerate the very saltiest water you can throw at it. It will tolerate ocean level salinity. So it's a beautiful grass. You can mow it very short. Here it is growing on a golf course fairway up here in northern Colorado that has some salty areas on its fairways. And so this lighter colored grass is the alkali grass. I have recommended this grass to people who have that really small yard and they have dogs that have that atomic urine that kills everything. These alkali grass will tolerate very, very toxic dog urine. And as you can tell by the names on these varieties, Salty, Salton Sea, Oceana, these grasses will tolerate very, very salty soils. They're oftentimes planted along roadsides where a lot of salt from de-icing is used, and they will tolerate that saltiness. So if you do have that dog that's really good at killing your lawn, consider getting some alkali grass to seed into that lawn. Well, let's talk about buffalo grass. Buffalo grass is truly native, native to a huge portion of the western United States, everywhere from Canada, and I would say not just the United States, North America and Central America. It extends far south into Mexico and into Central America. So it's got a very, very wide north-south distribution. It's not native to the eastern United States where it rains too much. This grass does not do well. It gets all kinds of disease and insect problems. It's not a perfect grass. No grass is perfect. Bluegrass isn't, tall fescue isn't, buffalo grass isn't. But it can form a very nice, dense turf. This is a picture of a lawn. I took this one at University of Nebraska up in, or their research station up in Scotts Bluff. And this is one of their newest seeded varieties of buffalo grass that I'll be telling you about. Here's a buffalo grass lawn in Denver that's mowed very infrequently. And this is an interesting one that's all female buffalo grass. I'll explain what that is in a minute here, but you won't see any flowers or seed heads with this female only lawn. Here's a buffalo grass lawn in Denver, or in Fort Collins. A woman converted her lawn from bluegrass to buffalo grass. She plugged this lawn. I'll get to buffalo. Oh, Amy, yeah. Buffalo grass will take about a half a day of shade. It's surprisingly shade tolerant. The best thing is it needs morning sun. So if it gets afternoon shade, that's okay. But as long as it gets morning sun for at least half the morning or half the day, it'll do okay. Here's a buffalo grass lawn here in Fort Collins that was converted a few years ago using plugs. And this lawn has not been watered or fertilized at all. And this picture was taken towards the end of summer. So you can see it's lost its color. Buffalo grass will not stay green all year without water, unless we have a freaky summer where it happens to rain about once every 10 to 14 days, about 3/4 to 1 inch. Then it will stay green all summer without irrigation, but that's not going to happen here. So this lawn does go dormant. It doesn't die. And again, it was native here, so it's used to this infrequent rainfall. Here's the backyard of that same lawn. You can see it's a little greener by the patio. The whole reason for that is the patio pavers act as a mulch. And so that grass is getting some water from underneath the patio pavers. Speaking of shade, this is a very shady part of that lawn, and the buffalo grass was still doing really well. But as soon as you got off the photo and in between the houses, the buffalo grass totally disappeared because it was not getting enough sun. So about a half a day of sun, it'll do okay. It does prefer all day sun though. Buffalo grass is a stoloniferous grass. It forms runners or stolons. And these, when you don't mow the grass regularly, they get airborne, they get aerial. And so they creep along the top of the canopy, and that can make the grass look a little messy, if you will. And actually, it can trip you. So especially if you're a little kid, or maybe you're older, or you're a little less steady on your feet, that is truly something to be aware of, is that these runners can trip you walking across a lawn like that. But they will go into places, they'll grow into places you don't want them. So this is that same patio where those runners are creeping onto the patio. If you go back but it would creep into the gravel here, and it would root into this gravel. So buffalo grass it'll grow into places. It'll grow into the bark chip mulch. It'll grow into your perennial beds. It'll grow into your vegetable garden. It does not stay put because of this stoloniferous tendency. but it's not that difficult to trim those too. And the kind of a little secret here is you can just pull these up, pull them off, and throw them on bare soil, and they'll root quite readily. And they'll root even better if you stick them into the soil. Each one of these little nodes will have little roots on them. So each of these could be a plant on those runners. So it is an easy grass to propagate. Here's the interesting thing about buffalo grass. We call it a dioecious species. It has male and female plants. So the flowers aren't separate plants. Most grasses you deal with, they have what we call perfect flowers. They have male and female parts in the same flower. But buffalo grass is different, and it has male and female plants. The male flowers grow above the grass leaves, whereas the female flowers are down in the grass canopy. So you really have to dig to find the females. So that one lawn I showed you, that was all female buffalo grass. One reason that is sold is because the grass looks much more uniform, whereas the males make the lawn look a little bit messy, which is very typical of guys. They're not very neat, right? Yeah, so there was a question about buffalo grass and Japanese beetle grubs. Yeah, and that's true. If you're maintaining your buffalo grass the way you should be, it should be very unattractive to Japanese beetle because the female likes very well-watered lawns. So could Japanese beetle eat buffalo grass roots? Sure. I doubt you're going to see a problem with Japanese beetle and buffalo grass, though. It'll go after other things in your landscape. Here's the female flowers again. So when you buy buffalo grass seed, this is what you're buying, and we call these burrs, buffalo grass burrs. Now those look like they'd be painful to walk on, and they are not. So even if you have the female, and the female will make flowers, but if there's no males around, there will be no viable seed. So the female buffalo grass still makes the burrs, but they're nothing like a sand burr or anything like that, or a puncture vine. They won't stick in your feet. They won't hurt your dog's feet. They're not painful. But when you buy buffalo grass seed, this is what you're buying. And each one of these will have 2 or 3 seeds in each one of those buffalo burrs. Oh yeah, so here's one that's germinated. You can see actually there's 2 plants coming out of that buffalo grass burr that is germinated. And actually this little thing right next to it, that's a blue grama seedling. So this was a mix of buffalo and blue grama that was seeded. So blue grama seedling here, buffalo grass seedling there. Yeah, I can send you information on clover lawn. So I can tell you, probably clover would not be a good plant to combine with buffalo grass. It needs too much water. So I can send you information on that too, Waylon. So if you want female buffalo grass, there's no seed for it because we're keeping the males out of the equation. So the only way to buy the female varieties is by plugs. So this is a plug tray of buffalo grass, and then this shows the plugs in the ground. I'll show you more of this coming up, or sometimes sod. So we do have one sod grower in the state down in Platteville that is growing female buffalo grass sod. Green Valley Turf has got legacy buffalo grass, and they're the only company I know of now that's growing any female buffalo grass sod. So the best varieties for Colorado lawns. If you're going to seed your lawn, I would just give you one name, and it's this one called Sundancer. That is the best seeded buffalo grass variety if you're going to seed your lawn. If you're going to do the vegetative and plant those plugs, and I'll show you both techniques here, Legacy or Prestige are the very best ones. Some other ones that are sold are not winter hardy here, or at least reliably. 609 was sold for years, and people would get 50% winter kill every year. So now most sod growers are avoiding selling it after I've chastised them for enough years. The reason for keeping male buffalo grass out of the lawn is it's just because of the flowers. The male flowers create the mowing requirement. A lot of times they can get fairly tall. Other people like the male flowers because they get this bright red, orange, yellow coloration to them when they're producing the pollen. But some people are allergic to buffalo grass pollen, so if you can keep the males away, you don't have pollen causing your allergies. So that's the main reason to have a female-only buffalo grass. Okay, so again, Prestige is the female clone. This one would have been sodded or plugged. Okay. Okay, again, the question, this is a buffalo grass lawn. Look how shady that buffalo grass lawn is. But this is afternoon shade, and that buffalo grass is doing just fine. So again, at least half the day, but preferably all day. Everything I said about buffalo grass pretty much holds true for blue grama, except blue grama is a bunch grass. So it gets very clumpy in lawns. To me, it's a much better grass, or makes a much better lawn if you don't mow it. It's more attractive. The seed heads are more attractive. When you mow blue grama, it's not always a real pretty thing. You tend to get lots of bunches and lots of bare soil. It doesn't creep like the buffalo grass does and fill in those open voids. But on the other hand, it kind of stays put. Although all the seed being produced here, that seed will go into your flower beds and your vegetable gardens and those kind of places. So, so that's something we've noticed with Blonde Ambition, which is an ornamental blue grama that's sold, is it's a pretty prolific seeder, and it can get a little out of control in some places. Here's Hachita blue grama. This is the one that's probably most sold for home lawns. That's probably the best variety to get. It's really a native blue grama. This is what would be planted out in dry land, native prairie or pasture. But it can make an okay lawn. You can see it's nowhere near as uniform as the buffalo grass is. Okay, so buffalo and blue grama lawns, they can be seeded. I would do that anywhere from late April to May. You can do it in June, you can do it in July, but certainly I would not start this process. Really, I wouldn't even start after August 1st. You're just running the risk of having those plants winter kill if we have a really tough winter. So you want these lawns up and growing and rooted, however you plant them, by August, so that they have that first winter, they're in a fairly mature state of condition. Okay, I just want to mention the fine fescues. These are not native, but these could be a drier lawn. If you wanted a lawn that you don't water as much, maybe you wanted a lawn you don't want to mow as much, these can be actually make kind of a nice unmowed, kind of a natural looking, not truly native, but a natural looking lawn. And actually I should say sheep's fescue, Festuca ovina, is native to North America. Okay, so you could consider it, and its close relative, hard fescue. These other fescues, though, the Festuca rubras, those are Eurasian, European in origin. So the fine fescues have very fine leaves. They're very shade tolerant. They're slow growing. They'll tolerate the worst soils, rocky soil, sandy soil. Things they don't like wet feet. They don't have the best traffic tolerance, and they can get a little bit thatchy. So not a perfect grass, but kind of a cool grass. If you have super dense shade, this is probably the best grass to plant. So shade this dense all day. Don't try buffalo grass here or blue grama or any of the other natives. This would be a lawn where you'd want fine fescue if it's shade that dense. But for those, as somebody told me or said this yesterday on a lawn check, he called this the go to hell strip, which I just laughed at. But that hell strip, that area along the street where it's really hard to grow anything, this is just a few blocks away from my office here in Fort Collins. This is sheep fescue, the Festuca ovina. that's not mowed, and it's probably about 8-10 inches tall. The grass kind of flops over, has a cool color to it, very natural or native kind of a look to it. Here's some other fescue lawns. I took these pictures in California. So California is big into planting fine fescue lawns and not mowing it. Now they've got a little bit more rain where this is happening, so they stay green all year, and it's much more mild, kind of a Mediterranean climate. The fine fescues do great there, but you could do fine fescue like this. Some people think this looks really cool, and other people, this freaks them out seeing lawns that look like that. So, it's just basically the mowed versus unmowed look. And here is a fine fescue lawn. This is just a few miles north of Fort Collins here. This was an interesting lawn visit. Allison and I got called to this landscape because the woman wanted to replace her lawn. She wanted to remove this lawn because she thought it was a terrible lawn. And I'm not sure if we were successful, but we tried to convince her that this was the most gorgeous fine fescue lawn in the northern Front Range, and she should by all means keep it. Whether she believed us or not, I don't know. But she was adamant. She thought it was a horrible lawn. And I was oohing and eyeing over this lawn and told her she could actually sell this on eBay because there are no sod growers that were growing fine fescue as good as this. So, but this is a lawn you could probably water at half of what you're watering a bluegrass lawn and still keep it fairly green. So it's kind of in between that buffalo grass, no water lawn, and the bluegrass kind of water lawn. And I couldn't tell you, this is probably chewings and hard fescues, maybe some creeping reds. It was more than likely it was a mix of different fine fescues. Okay, so we got native grasses, we got fine fescues. The idea is you have to decide, do I want a grass that's going to be green most of the year? If that's the case, you probably want like fine fescue, maybe wheatgrass. But if you're okay with it being dormant 8 months out of the year, then buffalo grass or blue grama might be a grass for you. So that decision of what grass to plant is a pretty important one. When you go, we've got great seed companies here in the Front Range. So the Buffalo brand seed is in Greeley, Colorado, and here's their Buffalo blue grama mix, and this is a great way to buy these grasses. It's a cheaper way to buy the natives, and so you can go right to their store in Greeley and buy this Buffalo blue grama mix. Then they have something they call a low grow mix. Now you can see what's in here. So this has sheep and chewings fescue, has some crested wheatgrass, has an upland bluegrass. I could tell you right from the beginning, this probably won't make a very nice looking lawn, but it'll make a lawn, okay? And depending on how much you water it and mow it and care for it, it could end up being all wheatgrass. It could end up being mostly fine fescues. That perennial ryegrass is probably going to disappear within a few years. It's not a mix I would recommend, but this one is sold quite often. When people go to a seed company and say, I want a native lawn, a lot of times they sell them this. It's not what I would plant. It will do okay. Here's another low grow mix from a totally different company. And you can see they kind of copy each other. This one's got wheatgrass and a couple fescues and some ryegrass in it. So these low grows, they're not necessarily low growing. Crested wheatgrass will get about 2 feet tall if you don't mow it. So that's kind of a mischaracterization of this mix. It's not really low growing, but it'll live on just a little bit of water. And then I call this a shotgun mix. This has got warm and cool season things in it. The idea with these is you put it out and something is going to survive. So this has little blue stem and gramas and drop seed and sheep fescues and wheatgrasses. This has got everything in it. This is a true smorgasbord. I could tell you if all of this survived, you would have a very strange looking lawn. It would be an interesting lawn, but it would be a very strange looking lawn. And the other thing I would say about this is it's going to be very hard to do weed control in this lawn. And you'll see why in a minute. But basically, the warm season grasses need different herbicide chemistry to care for lawns than the warm season grasses. So species selection, really, really, really important. It's probably the most important first step, but the next most important step is how to plant it correctly. So let's go through the planting process. Depending on what you decide, am I seeding? Am I plugging? Am I sodding? These are all very different processes. But in general, if it's a warm season, if it's Buffalo Blue Grama, you got to do it early in the year. If it's cool season stuff, you can do it spring, summer, or fall. So you got more latitude there if you're doing a cool season conversion. Then you have to decide, am I going to take the old lawn out? Am I starting with bare soil? Do I have a lot of weeds I have to kill? So there's a lot of maybe upfront preparation before you seed. What I sometimes see when I see failures in native lawns is that shortcuts are made at the beginning. People don't do weed control. They don't get things level. But the most important thing is they don't do weed control. They don't get rid of stuff that's pretty easy to kill beforehand. And then they try to do it afterwards, and it's way more difficult once you have grass growing there to get rid of certain weeds and grasses. So take your time, do your homework, do the process right, and I'll show you somebody that did it right. They followed all the rules because they were a school teacher, and they got a beautiful buffalo grass lawn out of it. And here's a little thing. You will have weeds. I don't care how careful you are. I don't care what soil you have. I don't care how much you hope or wish. You will have weeds when you do this lawn conversion, especially to natives. Okay, let's say you're starting with bare soil. So you can till and all that. Remember that tilling brings up weed seed, and it's guaranteed you will have weeds. The more you till, the more weeds you're going to have. The less you till, the fewer weeds you're going to have. And if you can get away without tilling that soil, and I'll show you how you do that, you're going to have the fewest weeds. So tillage makes weeds in your lawn, in your vegetable garden, in your flower bed, wherever you till, okay? The other thing is after you do your tilling and smoothing, you got to firm it. So you almost always have to roll it and get it firm again, which some people say, well, that defeats the purpose of tilling. Not really, but you need a firm seed bed to plant the seed in or to plant the plugs in, because otherwise it settles once you start watering it, and then you have a lawn that's uneven and it's really hard to fix afterwards. So anytime you're starting a lawn, I don't care if you're planting a new bluegrass lawn, you want a firm seed bed, okay? And then, then we're seeding, using a spreader, putting the appropriate amount of seed out. So when you get the seed, ask the seed company, what's the seeding rate? And in the stuff I'm sending you, you will have the recommended seeding rates for the different grasses. So you seed in 2 different directions, so you get good coverage. When you're seeding, if you sink into that soil, it's not firm enough. You should be able to walk on that bare soil without sinking in. That's how firm it should be. Then you rake it, you drag it, you work the seed in. You don't bury it, you just work it in, and then you roll it again to get the seed into the soil, to press it into the soil. It looks like a lot of rolling, a lot of raking. It is. This is how you get a good stand of seed of grass. Okay, so I'm going to take you through a process of where this guy did this. So this was an existing lawn. He wanted to get rid of his bluegrass lawn. This is a school teacher. He wanted to kill it off because he was just having too many problems with it. And we won't go into why that was, but a good amount of the bluegrass was dead already. He was in his HOA. HOA said, you got to do something with this lawn. He got permission to convert it to a buffalo grass lawn. So he called us and we gave him explicit instructions. He did everything, and he texted me photos like every day. It was nice, kind of annoying at times, but in the end I got lots of great pictures. Okay, and he did everything I said, and it worked perfectly. So he killed his lawn off with Roundup. We'll talk about that in a minute. We won't talk about Roundup, but we'll talk about how to kill your lawn off. And he had so much thatch they had to remove this lawn. So here's the thing is, sometimes you can kill that lawn and plant right into it. And that's the desirable way to do it. If he could have not removed this lawn, if he could have just left what was there and seeded into it, that's the ideal thing to do. I'll show you how you do that. But he had a really thick organic layer that would not allow that to happen. So he cut it off with a sod cutter, he tilled it, he firmed it, he rolled it, he got it very, very firm. He put a new irrigation system in. You can see his flags for his irrigation system. He did everything. We were very good at spending other people's time and money, but he did it because he had the summer off basically, and he was at home watching his kids. Then here he is with his cedar. He seeded buffalo grass. And then afterwards, he rolled it, just like I said. And then here you can see the buffalo grass seed. Buffalo grass seed is green when you buy it, by the way, which means it's been treated to help it to germinate. So whenever you buy any kind of grass seed and it has a dyed coloration, that means it's been treated in some way. So he bought this seed that will germinate, in about 10 to 12 days. And it took about 10 days for his seed to germinate. It's kind of hard to see in these pictures, but what actually happened was some weeds came up before the grass seed, which is not unusual. You can see little shades of green here, okay? But you can see the weeds, purslane, coming up. We did recommend a fertilizer pre-emerge combination that he used, but it does not control purslane, so he had to do something else. This shows his lawn, probably a month and a half, 6 weeks after germination. I got him to fertilize this about every 7 to 10 days, which sounds crazy. So here's the thing. If you're going to do this, accelerate the process. And that means fertilizing it. Buffalo grass loves fertilizer. Even though it's native, this stuff responds to fertilizer. And the faster you can get the stuff to grow, the fewer weeds you're going to have. So he followed my instructions, which goes against all the textbooks and all the fact sheets you will see written, which is why I'm writing a different one for this process. And then here's his picture on the right hand. This is a picture in the fall before its first winter. So that's in all, this process took him probably 3 months from bare soil to that picture on the right hand side, but he had a gorgeous, fully covered, beautiful buffalo grass lawn by following the instructions. Okay. So again, should you remove the old lawn? If you can avoid it, leave it in. It's lots of good organic matter. You don't have to re-level things. You don't have to refirm. You don't have to deal with as many weeds. There's all kinds of benefits, all kinds, to not removing that lawn. Okay. This example, this is not putting in a buffalo grass lawn, but I will show you how you go through this process of leaving the lawn in. So believe it or not, these people did not like their lawn. We won't go into why that is, but they wanted to kill this off and install a new lawn. So I'm going to show you the process they used to kill this lawn off, believe it or not. So they sprayed Roundup on this lawn. Here's the lawn. Probably about 2 weeks after the first application. Actually, they did 2 applications. This is the day of the second application of Roundup. So you can see there's still a little bit of green out there. Here's the thing. You want to make sure what you're planting into is dead. So if you want a buffalo grass lawn, you want to make sure you kill that bluegrass before you seed into it. And again, this is the process if you're going to keep the lawn, if there's not a lot of thatch there. And this is the process I'm recommending to HOAs all over the city that are converting bluegrass into different natives. Is kill the lawn, mow it super short, like you can see they've done here. They've basically scalped it down to the soil surface, remove all that stuff, and then you seed into it. And here's the lawn fully dead after that second application of Roundup. Okay, now it's ready for seeding. And so what they're using is it's a slit, what's called a slit seeder, and it puts little slits into the soil, and the seed is in these slits. So this is a great way to seed a new lawn, and you can rent these seeders from the equipment rental companies, and Lowe's and Home Depot sometimes have them. The best pattern is a diamond pattern, not the square or the 90 degree. It's better to go in a diamond, but they didn't listen. In any case, there's seed in all those slits. The other way to do this, if you can't find a slit seeder, is to run an aerifier and make lots and lots and lots of holes. And then you put the seed out, and what falls in the holes is what grows. And so you can see the seed growing out of the holes. Now, obviously, you want the holes really, really close together. And that means going over that lawn many, 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 many times with this aerifier. Lots and lots of holes. We call it Swiss cheesing the lawn. Lots of holes. The seed that falls in the holes, see, there's seed that fell between these. You can see some of that seed coming up. You can see these wimpy little grass seedlings. They don't do anywhere near as well as what falls in the hole. So you want lots and lots of holes. And so this is the trick to just leaving that old lawn in place. And again, this works for any lawn conversion. Changing your old bluegrass lawn to a new bluegrass lawn, or the bluegrass to tall fescue, bluegrass to fine fescue, bluegrass to buffalo grass. You could do this with buffalo grass. The buffalo grass seeds that fall in those holes will grow just fine, or blue grama. So this works for any kind of lawn conversion. Then there is that lawn 60 days after seeding. So they went from, and it doesn't look a whole lot different, does it? They did not like that lawn, and they went to this lawn in really about 80 days. So including the Roundup, okay? So what works best if all you have are weeds? Roundup. There we go. Thought you would ask that question, so here we go. So lawn renovation, if you have nothing but weeds, Roundup. Now an option, and I'm going to tell you about this option, is this stuff called horticultural vinegar, horticultural acetic acid. It's 20% acetic acid. This is one brand from a company called Weed Farm. But there are a bunch of these. You can get it on Amazon. You can go to some of our garden centers and buy horticultural vinegar, horticultural acetic acid. Big difference between these. Roundup is systemic. It goes down to the roots, the rhizomes. It kills the entire plant. This horticultural vinegar only kills the leaves, and then the plant regrows, and then you spray it again and it kills the leaves. Then you spray it again, it kills the leaves. You spray it again, it kills the leaves. It's going to take minimum 3, really minimum 4, probably 5, maybe 6 applications of this to kill perennial grassy weeds. Okay, it's like every 7 to 10 days for a good month and a half, maybe 2 months of using this stuff. Okay. Okay, where's Roundup? 2 applications, and you're going to have that lawn killed off, or those other weeds. All right. So, so Allison and I, a number of years ago, we did a study comparing these. I'll cut to the chase here. Table vinegar doesn't work, but can the hort vinegar be a viable alternative to Roundup? The only reason I'm saying this, and I'm not saying that I would do this instead of Roundup, but people always ask. So just to forestall the questions, yes. So this acetic acid, 20%, here's the problem with it. It can work 4 or 5 applications. Here I'm being generous, I say 3. It's going to be 4, probably 5 to kill everything. It's going to cost you probably this much money. Lots. It's expensive. Whereas Roundup is going to be $1.70 for 2 applications per 1,000 square feet, whereas the acetic acid is $100 plus for 1,000 square feet. So again, let that register. $100 or $1.70. That's a huge difference. So if you want to use the horticultural vinegar, and this does not include your time of applying it, and again, this is for 3 applications, it's going to be 4. So you're going to be more like $150 per 1,000. because you apply that stuff undiluted, okay? No, Roundup does not kill seeded grass. It does not poison the soil. But we're not getting into a Roundup debate here, folks. If you want to send me emails, I will debate you all week on Roundup. But it's not going to poison the soil. You can seed, technically you can seed the same day that you apply a Roundup, but that's not what we recommend. It will not sterilize the soil, but you have to use Roundup, not Roundup plus anything else, just Roundup. Another alternative is to solarize, and this is a good 10 weeks of putting clear plastic on your lawn, waiting for it to bake, and again here 4 to 8 weeks, and then so solarizing, but you need full sun to do this. If you've got part day shade, it's not going to work. But here's a lawn where somebody did solarize and they converted that lawn to something else. So that solarization's an option. Again, you're going to be getting this handout, and you'll be able to go to this website at University of California and read all you want about solarization. Okay, so you've killed it. However you've killed it. Solarization, 20% acetic acid, or the logical way is using Roundup. You've got a dead lawn. Wow, you can plant the plugs right into that dead lawn. Here's what you do. You scalp it, all the dead stuff off, get down as close as your mower will let you, and then you can plant into it. So you can drill holes for these buffalo grass plugs. This is great. 1 1/4 inch drill bit. You can even buy this from the company that sells it, and I'll show you who you buy these from. And you plant the plugs. The closer together you plant them, the faster you're going to have a lawn. And this just shows basically how fast, this is one growing season that this lawn, these were planted at 12-inch centers, and you can see how fast those plugs grow. Again, buffalo grass is a stoloniferous species. You can see it's even growing out. Again, you can see growing out onto the concrete in the driveway and the sidewalk in this lawn. So it moves pretty darn quickly. Here's another one, just shows 7 weeks after planting. So you can see it spreads pretty quickly. Here's just another one. I'd just like to show you these to show you. So here's bare soil. So this was one where it was tilled. This is not where they killed the lawn and then planted into the dead lawn, but this is a bare soil. And so they space these out. They were very meticulous with their planting. So you can see they started up at the top, putting the plugs in, and they're watering those as they take them out of the plug trays. And that's very, very crucial, because these plugs, if there's any time in its life that buffalo grasses can be killed, it's when it's a new plug, a new plant. So it doesn't have its root system developed at this point. So it's going to need lots of water. Any native grass, sodded, seeded, or plugged, will need water. Here's 4 weeks after it was planted, but also look what's coming up 4 weeks after it was planted. Now, these folks, they didn't put a product down that I'm going to recommend soon that would have prevented a lot of these weed problems. So they had to go in afterwards and apply some herbicides. And so one of them I'm going to be showing you the name of a few more times, but it's called Quicksilver. So Quicksilver can be applied to seedling grass. It can be applied to these young buffalo grass plugs without harming the grass, but it kills the weeds. And it kills the weeds basically overnight, but only if they're really, 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 really small ones, okay? Now look at this, 8 weeks after plugging. That's pretty amazing, isn't it? So here's day 1. There's 8 weeks later, you have your buffalo grass lawn. And again, you can see that buffalo grass creeping out onto the sidewalk. This is how and why it does so well. And you can see this is the day their first mowing as well. Then here's another 4 weeks later. So this is the 12-week-old lawn. And they mowed it, so they've mowed it every 4 weeks here. But they do have weeds. So remember, I told you, you will have weeds in your buffalo grass lawn. You will. So So again, here's this quicksilver, which is unfortunately extraordinarily expensive. About 100, and I think Allison and I priced it out the other day on Amazon. It's about 120 days for, or $120 for like 4 ounces or something like that. So it's very expensive, maybe 8 ounces. Then here's 20 weeks after the plugs were planted. So just a gorgeous buffalo grass lawn. Again, this is a female clonal buffalo grass variety. So you can do this. You can do this. Will this work for blue grama? No, blue grama does not spread. It does not have these runners like you see in the bottom of the picture. So blue grama, you can get blue grama plugs, but it's not going to spread. So you're going to have a bunchy lawn if you don't seed blue grama. It's a pain to seed though, because it's like seeding cotton balls, to be quite honest. Now, quicksilver is not harmful to pollinators. It is a pollinator-safe herbicide. Yes, Mohammed, you want the weeds before flowering. Very good. You want seedling weeds. The younger the weeds are, the better quicksilver works. Okay. So blue grama, everything I said about buffalo holds for blue grama, except it's going to give you, you're going to have a better lawn if you seed it versus plugging. It's a bunch grass, so it grows in a very clumpy fashion. Here's blue grama plugs, but they're not going to spread. So this is kind of going to be a weird looking buffalo grass or blue grama lawn, but it does germinate really quickly. It's a fast germinating grass. So native lawns can be sodded if you can find a sod grower. So again, Green Valley is the only sod company that's selling buffalo grass sod. It's the Legacy buffalo grass, which is a good one. And so that is an option. Now, if you were in Texas, there are lots of sod growers in Texas and in California and in eastern Nebraska that are growing buffalo grass sod. But unfortunately, here in the Front Range, we've got very little production because people just don't buy it. Again, sod this stuff early in the year. Get it all rooted before its first summer, or first winter, sorry. So water is essential for new seed, new sod, new plugs, buffalo, blue grama, whatever you're planting. But you're not creating a swamp. You want it damp, you want it moist, but not squishy, not standing water. Okay, so this is multiple waterings every day, especially if you put sod down, but even seed, even plugs, you don't want that stuff drying out, but you don't want it sitting in water. There's a fine line there. So here's kind of a guideline. I give this to the HOAs and any contractors that are doing conversions. So for the first 4 weeks, the first month of the life of a buffalo grass or blue grama lawn, 3 to 4 daily irrigation cycles. You just want the surface inch or so to be moist, but adjust it. Use common sense. If it's cloudy and cold and raining for a week, don't water. If it's hot and dry and windy and sunny and blazing 98-degree temperatures, water more often. It's a common sense thing. But unfortunately, common sense is kind of uncommon these days. And then once it gets a little older, once the seed is up and germinated, then you go to like once daily. You want that soil to dry out. That encourages rooting. It encourages spreading of the grass. You're still going to get some grass seed germinating, and it's still going to germinate, even though it's a little bit drier. What this also does is you're getting the lawn dried out so that you can eventually mow it. Mowing helps these grasses spread. It is a good thing to mow these grasses early on. Don't be afraid to mow them. It makes them spread. Is quicksilver used as a spot treatment or broadcast? If you just have spots of weeds, just do the spot treatment. Yeah, spot treating is always a good thing, especially when quicksilver is as expensive as it is. Yeah, spot treatment's always better. Okay, and then once you're in that third month of the life of this seeded or plugged buffalo or blue grama lawn, or even a bluegrass lawn, once or twice weekly. Let it dry out. Again, this lets you mow. It discourages weeds. It maintains healthy growth. And again, especially for blue grama and buffalo grass, it lets the soil heat up, which is really what they like. These grasses grow better when the soil is hot. And constant watering cools that soil off. And so this has been the hardest lesson for the landscape contractors that we work with at the HOAs. They are petrified of letting buffalo and blue grama stands dry out. And it's the best thing you can do for them, is to let them dry out a little. If you water too much, so here's a picture from an HOA. This is where a contractor would refuse to listen to us. They would not turn the water off. And it was frustrating because the HOA would call us out about the weeds. And we go out and look, and I say, so I don't know if you recognize this weed. This is cattails growing in buffalo grass. Not a good thing when you have cattails growing in your buffalo grass. It was just being watered so much that the weeds were taking over. So you have to let it dry out. So let's talk about weeds here. This is another HOA we've been working with. And I go out, and so here's how you have different perspectives. They were horrified. They were just petrified. And they said, you have to come out and see there's nothing but weeds. And I went out and looked at this, and I said, this is gorgeous. Yes, you've got some weeds, easy to control. To me, this is not a problem. This is when you should be applying Quicksilver. It will take care of all of the broadleaf weeds, and then there's another product that'll take care of the grassy weeds. So to me, this is an easy thing to fix. But people seeing this for the first time, they're petrified of this, and including the contractors. So when you do get weeds in these native lawns, and again, I'm saying buffalo grass, blue grama, any of the warm season stuff, the carfentrazone, the Quicksilver, we've mentioned that one. This does the broadleafs, this does the purslanes, the spurge, all that kind of stuff. And then we have something called quinclorac, which does the crabgrass, the grassy weeds. So it is two different products. Now, unfortunately, there used to be a product that combined both of these, but that product's no longer sold. But it had quinclorac and carfentrazone in it, and it was like a magical elixir for new lawns. So now you have to buy these two separately. You can apply them the same day. Actually, you can put them in the same tank and spray them together. So if I could package buffalo grass and blue grama seed with these two herbicides, that's what I would do if I was a grass seed company. I would sell them as a lawn kit, a buffalo grass lawn kit, and would include those and this one. Okay, so here's what I would do if I was starting a buffalo grass lawn from plugs or from seed. I would get the Scott's Turf Builder with starter fertilizer. I would put this down the day that I seeded or plugged, and it will amazingly allow the grass seed to come up, allow the plugs to grow, and it'll control the weeds. It's a very, very cool product, and it's amazing that you can get this from the Scott's company, because the product in it is something called Tenacity, which is a very expensive product, and generally only professional lawn care companies are using this, but you as a homeowner can get access to this. And again, this would work for a new bluegrass lawn, a new fescue lawn, new ryegrass, buffalo grass, blue grama, any of the new lawns this works for. This is a truly magical product from Scott's, and I rarely say that about Scott's, but this is a cool thing that they're selling. And again, if I would still be wanting to get carfentrazone and quinclorac, even if I put the Scott's product down. So now you can get Tenacity by itself, and you can spray that on your new seedling. So here's a newly seeded lawn that's got weeds coming up in it, and you can see what the tenacity does. So it's cool. It works as a pre-emerge product, or it works on weeds that you can see. It works both ways, which is a very cool thing about this tenacity herbicide. So get a bag of that for your new lawn. Good stuff. And then get some Quicksilver and quinclorac. Okay, where do you get these things? High Country Gardens, you can get your plugs, your buffalo grass, and your blue grama there. Here's a little secret though, folks. Little secret. They get theirs from the one on the left, the Todd Valley Farms. And it's, you can see it's cheaper, $7 a tray cheaper. And I would venture to guess that the quality is going to be better. Getting it straight from Todd Valley, because otherwise they're sending it to High Countries, then High Country shipping it to you. Makes no sense. So go right to Todd Valley Farms in Mead, Nebraska, which is right by Lincoln. They're the ones that grow the plugs. They're the only ones licensed to grow those plugs. They just sell them to other companies like High Country, who then sell them to you. So go to Todd Valley to get your plugs. If you want sod, go to Green Valley Turf, and you can get Legacy buffalo grass. And you can go online now. You can see what it would cost for 1,000 square feet. And you can see all the options here, everywhere from you picking it up for $1,000 to them installing it for $3,000 and everything in between. You can see what it's cost you to get that Legacy buffalo grass lawn, or you can seed it, or you can plug it. All kinds of different ways. Okay. So again, costs, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I want to get to the maintenance. I only have 15 minutes left, and Allison's going to kill me. And Amy will be not far behind if I don't finish. Okay, so let's talk about maintenance. So remember, you have warm and cool season grasses. Don't manage your warm season grass, your buffalo grass, like it's bluegrass. You have to change the way you manage this grass once you switch from blue to buffalo. You have to. So one great source of information, and so instead of recreating the wheel, I refer people to University of Nebraska. They have what they call a buffalo grass lawn calendar. And I think I'll probably just clone this, copy it, if you will, and do it here in Colorado. But it's really the same thing, as to how you manage these plants. So it's fertilizing in the middle of the summer. It's mowing. It's doing some weed control. It's putting some pre-emerge out. So you can put the crabgrass preventer out. But it's just a great source of information, this buffalo grass calendar. So what are the important parts of managing buffalo grass? Number one, decide, are you going to mow it or not? If you're not going to mow it, you can skip this slide, except you're going to have to mow it probably once a year, okay? But if you're going to regularly mow it. Don't kind of waffle and say, oh, wow, that looks too tall. Now I'm going to scalp it down. Don't do that. Decide, I'm going to have a mowed buffalo grass lawn or an unmowed one. Make that decision and stick to it. Don't be going back and forth. That's hard on the lawn. One thing I would tell you is the shorter you mow it, the more weeds you're going to have. This is kind of in my basic lawn care talk that I did many weeks ago. But raising your mowing height is the cheapest weed control product, and it's cheap and it's easy. Taller grass has fewer weeds, folks. That's all there is to it, whether it's bluegrass or buffalo grass, okay? So here's, again, fine fescue. You can mow it. It's gorgeous. You can unmow it or have it unmowed. It's gorgeous. Decide. But don't let it get this tall and then go to that. That will kill grass, guaranteed. Same thing with the blue grama. Decide, do I want to mow it or not mow it? Make that decision up front. Don't go back and forth. Same thing with buffalo grass. Mowed or unmowed. Okay? So, one thing though, is with the warm season grasses, with your buffalo grass, your blue grama. If you decide you don't want to mow that lawn, that's cool, but mow it once in the spring. So here, and what that does is it gets all that brown stuff off in the spring, and it helps your grass to green up. It'll allow it to come out of dormant. So you can see the bottom part of this picture. This is buffalo grass that was mowed early. This is where it wasn't mowed. You can see it comes out of dormancy. Much better, much more healthy if you mow it one time. So if you're going to mow your buffalo grass only once in a year, do it sometime like in March, late March, early April, somewhere in there. Okay. Just another picture doing that. Here's what not to do. So I took this picture not even 8 hours ago. I had to drop my car off for some servicing, so I'm walking back to my office from one part of Fort Collins to another. And I walk by a lawn that I've probably driven by 1,000 times. And it's like, wow, because I'm a nerd and I'm always looking at the grass. This is a blue grama lawn. And so I had to stop and take pictures. But this was great because they're like mismanaging this blue grama lawn. This poor, beautiful, for the most part, blue grama lawn is being mismanaged. One way it's being mismanaged is they did that first spring mowing, but what they did was they didn't collect all of that stuff that they mowed off. And they just left huge clumps of it all over that lawn, which is smothering the blue grama and is probably going to kill it. So then what's going to happen? You're going to have weeds growing, and that's probably where these weeds come from. These probably came from last year when they did this. You're going to have weeds growing in those open areas. Where the blue grama is healthy, you're not going to have weeds. So mow it and collect that stuff. Fertilizer, the buffalo blue grama doesn't care what kind of fertilizer you use. Just do it at the right time of the year. Okay. And the important thing is the nitrogen. I'm going to skip to the warm season. So look at this. May, June, maybe July, and then don't fertilize in the fall, don't fertilize in the spring. For buffalo, for blue grama. But if you have a bluegrass or fescue lawn, it's just the opposite almost. You fertilize them in the spring or the fall, but not so much in the summer. Okay, so fertilize your buffalo when it's actively growing. If you have a high use buffalo grass lawn, this is a buffalo grass lawn with kids in a playground on it. Now, buffalo grass will get worn out. It's not the most traffic tolerant grass, but if you fertilize it a lot, it will grow and it will fill these divoted areas in. It will creep because of those runners, but it needs stimulation to do that, folks. And that comes from the fertilization. So if you have a buffalo grass lawn, it's getting worn out by the kids and the dog, fertilize it and water it more. That's the only way it's going to recover from that traffic. There's no best fertilizer. I'm not going to go into that. Irrigation. Keep it dry. If you can't resist, get a soil moisture sensor that takes the temptation to water that lawn out of your hands and put it on dry, or do the seasonal adjustment and dry that lawn out. Do not treat your buffalo grass like it's a bluegrass lawn. Get a smart controller where you can put in, so this ratio one, you can actually put buffalo grass into it and it will take over that watering to water it like it's a buffalo grass lawn. So if you can't resist, if you don't have the self-control to keep it dry, find some automated way to do it, okay? But this woman, again, here's the lawn in Fort Collins, beautiful. No fertilizer, no water. All the neighbors would come over and say either, I like that idea of no water, no fertilizer, or no, I like my bluegrass. Everyone's different. So I'm not trying to convince you this is the way to go. But without fertilizer and water, that's what it's going to look like maybe at the end of the summer. If that doesn't bother you, that's a good look. Cool. If that does bother you, you probably shouldn't convert. Okay. Or you maintain the buffalo grass like it was bluegrass, which is always an option, but I don't see the point in it. You will have weeds in your buffalo grass lawn, even after it's established. So here's that same lawn, the one I saw this morning. They had all kinds of uh, perennial grassy weeds. They had brome grass, they had quackgrass, they had tall fescue, they had bluegrass, they had annual bluegrass, which should never be in a blue grama lawn. And it's because I know it's being way over irrigated. I could tell by just sticking my knife into the ground and by walking on it and feeling it that they are way overwatering this blue grama lawn. And what that does is it encourages plants to come in that need a lot of water. The less water you can give these, the fewer weeds you're going to have. The other thing that might have happened, and I think probably happened, is they didn't kill everything before they planted the blue grama. So they didn't have the brome or the cheatgrass totally killed, or maybe even the thistle. And then they planted and said, oh, we'll take care of it later. Well, you can still do it. And if you do have some of these perennial grasses in your buffalo or blue grama lawn, send me a separate email. I'll tell you some things you can put on it to kill it, but to kill those grasses. But I don't want to complicate things by giving you those because they're kind of touchy chemistry. Here is cheatgrass growing in this very same lawn. So you're going to have winter annuals in your buffalo grass lawn. You're going to get henbit. You're going to get cheatgrass. You're going to get chickweed. You'll get some shepherd's purse in your buffalo grass. It just happens. Buffalo grass, when it's not growing for 8 months out of the year, especially over the winter, you're going to get some winter weeds coming into it. So you can use crabgrass preventer in the spring, just like you put on a bluegrass lawn or a fescue lawn. No problem there. And they are all safe. Anything you can put on a bluegrass lawn, you can put on a buffalo grass lawn. There are a lot of safe herbicides for use in buffalo grass. Interestingly, and unfortunately, in some cases, they are not the same ones you can use on bluegrass and vice versa. So here's the problem. A lot of what you buy in a garden center or a Home Depot or a Lowe's for your bluegrass lawn will leave some really weird colors if you spot treat weeds in your buffalo grass lawn. And this shows some buffalo grass where people, to their credit, spot treated. But unfortunately, that spot treatment doesn't kill it, but it discolors the buffalo grass. And it takes it a good month to recover from this. So you got to be really careful with like your weed begons and anything else that is sold for bluegrass lawns. It's not buffalo grass safe, especially if it's hot like it is now. If you went and got weed begone and sprayed it on your buffalo grass lawn now, I guarantee it would turn it orange. So you got to be careful when it's hot. If by chance you live in a place where it's legal and safe to burn your buffalo grass lawn, it's the nicest thing you can do in the spring. Unfortunately, most people don't have this option. The lady in Fort Collins, she actually did check with the fire department to see if they would let her burn her lawn, and they said absolutely not. So she had to mow all that dead stuff off instead of burning it. But burning it is nature's way of managing biomass in buffalo grass or blue grama or little blue stem, any of those warm season plants. Okay, I finished with 4 minutes left. Let's see. Questions? Is there anything I need to answer? Allison or Amy? Yes.
The one from Amy was, can you aerate buffalo grass lawns? Would that be successful?
You know, you can aerify. So if you have buffalo grass, and so here's a great example, that one with the swing set and the kids playing in it, yes, and it would probably benefit from aeration. Otherwise, buffalo grass doesn't get thatchy, even though it's stoloniferous grass. It's kind of interesting. It really does not get thatchy. So unless the soil's like really compacted, I probably wouldn't see a need to aerify it.
Tony, I have one more question. I'm going to be a participant for a minute. I hear people recommend buffalo blue grama together a lot. What's the point in that?
That's a great question, actually.
Maybe there's
so one reason that's sold, to be quite honest, is I call blue grama the ryegrass of natives. It germinates super quickly. So it gives you a feeling of success. It's like you see grass really quickly with blue grama, whereas buffalo grass, it can take sometimes 2 to 3 weeks for it to germinate, which is, so you're getting all these weeds come up and you see nothing from your buffalo grass, which can be very disconcerting to people, especially when you're watering it 3 times a day. Whereas the blue grama, I've seen it come up in 3 or 4 days after you seed it. It can be super fast. And so in that sense, it's good because it's competing with weeds early on. But you know, they kind of naturally grow together, although really in nature, blue grama grows in the sandier parts of Colorado, and buffalo grass grows in the more clay, the heavier quote soils of Colorado. So they do have different soil preferences naturally.
Interesting.
And
Will
then
they stay a mix, or will that buffalo grass eventually take over, do you think?
No, they'll stay pretty well mixed.
Okay.
And that makes kind of a, if you don't mow it, it depends on your perspective. It looks kind of natural, because it is, but you get this real tall stuff and really short stuff growing together, and to some people's eyes that doesn't look good because it's not a uniform height. But if you like naturalness, it looks cool. So
Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
there was the question, Tony, of grass recommendations for 9,000 feet. That is up there.
9,000, I would do the fine fescues. So like the chewings, the creeping red, the hard fescues. You won't grow, guaranteed, you will not grow buffalo or blue grama up there. Estes Park, you can do the gramas in Estes Park. Buffalo grass doesn't do as well there. But when you get to 9,000, you know, unless it is a southwest facing super hot exposure, you might get away with gramas. But I would do more the mountain kind of, you know, prairie June grass would work there. It would work great there. Fine fescues, alpine bluegrass, yeah, those alpine June grass, yeah, fine fescues.
There was a question from Cynthia about the salt grass or the salt tolerant grasses, where you could get those. Do the seed companies readily have those seeds?
Yeah, the alkali grass, yeah.
The alkali grass.
Yeah, Pawnee Buttes, Sharp, or they don't call them Sharps anymore. It's Buffalo brand seeds in Greeley, Arkansas Valley Seed. They all sell alkali grass, and usually it's Fultz or Salton Sea or one of those. There's only about 4 varieties of that alkali grass, and don't confuse it with salt grass. So alkali grass and salt grass are radically different grasses, and so I would do the alkali grass, not salt grass.
And then what would be the elevation maximums for some of the more common cool season grasses we have, like bluegrass, perennial rye? There's a question, she lives in the Elizabeth area, 6,400 feet.
The higher the elevation, the better for bluegrass.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a golf course in Leadville, Colorado, the highest golf course in the United States. Actually, they say they're the highest in the world, but I think there's one somewhere in Asia that's higher. But they've got Kentucky bluegrass greens. You can mow the bluegrass at greens height. There's so little stress on it. So the higher the elevation, the happier bluegrass is, than ryegrass and fine fescue. Tall fescue gets snow mold if you have a lot of snow, so I wouldn't do that one at high elevation. But yeah, higher the better.
All right, I think we got most of them. Again, Tony's email address is there. He loves email. If you have a Gmail account, CSU has some hiccups with that for some reason, so make sure that you just are persistent. And thank you, everyone.
We've got
Thanks,
a couple
Amy.
of poll questions, don't we?
Oh, we do have the poll. I totally forgot.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Two poll questions.
2 poll questions. Please take our short little poll. We love hearing from you. Next week on the 10th of June, Amy will be talking about berries for the Colorado garden. So if you're looking in adding some small fruits to your garden, Amy will discuss that. Then on the 17th, I'll be doing heat-loving perennials, and we'll finish this series with Amber doing the basics of food preservation. So those are the next 3 classes, all held at 3. Amy posted the link of where you can find those on the Hort blog. We love that you're here. We absolutely love it. And we hope you're finding these really beneficial. So you convinced some, Tony. That's a good thing.
Yeah, but Mohammed's staying with his bluegrass, he told me.
And that's absolutely 100% okay.
Yeah. I think it's good for people to have the information, whether, we're not going to sugarcoat it, right? We're just going to give it to you. So
Exactly.
all right.
All right. Well, if we don't have any further questions, we will end this session. We will send it out with the recording when we're able to do that, and Tony will include some other handouts and things like that. So thanks for joining us today, and have a great afternoon.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next week.